Mr. Bernard Jenkin.
Speaker, this bill is fundamentally not a decision-making bill. It is an enabling bill. It is an administrative measure. And of course, I spent many years on those benches, on the front bench of the opposition and on the back benches, practising the professional outrage that we have seen practised very effectively in the Chamber on Thursday last week and, if I may say, just now from the Honourable Lady from Penistone and Stockbridge. Of course, there are scintillas of truth in the points that are being made, but we should remember that the big decisions have been made on 23rd of June last year and in the Article 50 Act that we are leaving the European Union, and to vote against this bill, as my honourable friend from Basingstoke pointed out, is just a vote for chaos and a chaotic Brexit, rather than a smooth transition. Much of the debate is actually not about sovereignty, it's about scrutiny and the proper role of Parliament, as the Honourable Lady just said. There is huge complexity to deal with. There is a quantity of legislative changes that need to be made. But we need to keep this in proportion, and if the official opposition is really serious about having a sensible discussion about how to improve the scrutiny of secondary legislation and of these so-called Henry VIII provisions in particular, well, let's have that conversation. I'd be delighted to talk about how we do that. But actually, the Hansard Society proposals, are far more about the procedures we adopt in this House and in the other place, rather than about making fundamental changes to the bill, albeit some changes to the bill may be necessary. I give way to my right honourable friend, learned friend.
But my right honourable friend and I rarely agree totally on European matters, but I actually do agree with him that we do need a bill which is a practical bill, not a policy bill, which enables us to have a smooth transition. Would he therefore not agree this whole debate could be solved if the government would agree to amend the bill so that it only gives itself the powers that the Secretary of State explained to us yesterday he requires, and only achieves the ambitions which his letter to all MPs set out? And surely no one would miss the rather sweeping powers in Clause 7, Clause 9 and so on if they were removed, because the government expresses no intention of using them in the way everybody fears.
Well, I think that my right honourable learned friend actually sets out the common ground that we should all be on. But I don't think the debate is assisted by, say, Tony Blair, when on the television yesterday, saying that the only way to deal with this issue is, paradoxically, he said, you have to accept the referendum result to change it. And if there is a suspicion, understandable from this side of the House, that some people haven't really accepted that we're leaving the European Union. And the fact the official opposition has chosen to vote against the whole bill rather underlines that they're rather reluctant to accept the decision that the British people have made. But I just want to move on briefly. I re-emphasise, I think the Hansard Society proposals have got a lot to them, and we should be able to discuss them. And I hope colleagues behind the scenes will talk across parties on these matters, as one or two of us have already been suggesting we should. But to talk about, just to put this in the much wider context, we are getting rather lost in the detail of the bill and forgetting what the bill is for, or the context that the bill is being discussed in, that we are leaving on the 28th of March, or whichever actual date it is, next year. And it may be helpful, actually, to have the exit date on the face of the bill at the outset in order to provide that additional clarity. That negotiations are in progress, or negotiations should be in progress. I think everyone is getting a bit disappointed that there hasn't been more substantive discussion about the issues that really matter. And the European Union's position is beginning to look more and more unreasonable, refusing to discuss the end state of the relationship that we all want to see, insisting on an upfront payment or promise of payment before they will discuss those things. I have absolutely no doubt that they're playing for time for some reason, possibly to the German elections, far more likely to crumble on that and start to talk seriously about the necessary issues that we do need to discuss. And I think we can talk too much and too glibly about cliff edges. I notice even the government has put the term cliff edge into their documents. Let's face it, the United Kingdom does not want a cliff edge. We are offering the rest of the European Union seamless trade as far as possible, no tariff barriers, mutual recognition for products and services. I give way to my honourable friend.
I'm very grateful to my right honourable friend for giving way. He, I think, sets out in his last remarks the very essence of this bill. This isn't about a sudden change. This is about transposing EU law into British law and then evolving as we move forward as a sovereign nation.
Absolutely right. But the point is, we want that smooth transition. The only reason there is a possibility that there won't be a smooth transition is because of the intransigence so far of the European Union. Now, the paradox is, there are people who were very much in favour of Britain's membership of the European Union who clearly think that the European Union is going to inflict the most ghastly cliff edge on our country. I actually think better of them. I think that there are sensible people in the European Union that will not want tariffs. They will not want tariff barriers. They will not want new and unnecessary restrictions on trade between our two countries. They will not want to de-recognise so many of the mutual recognitions that we already have. They will want to secure the jobs of their own people in their countries just as much as we want to secure ours. So even if we do leave without an agreement, I think the biggest challenge is that we are ready in time. And my biggest concern is that there are still parts of government that don't seem to be preparing quickly enough. HMRC and the customs arrangements, are they actually spending money on what we need to have in place in case there is no deal? And I keep hearing that they are waiting for instructions as though there's going to be something much clearer for them to work against than there is already. We have to face the fact that we might well leave without a comprehensive settlement of some kind, and that therefore our customs arrangements and all the other arrangements will have to be ready on time, and this bill enables us to do that. I'm just going to end, perhaps a little soon, emphasising that a vote against this bill is a terrible disappointment, and actually I don't really take the vote against this bill at its face value, because I don't think the vast majority of honourable members in this House actually want to create a chaotic Brexit. I think they're going to be voting for a tactical defeat of themselves, because they know they cannot succeed in this debate. And I think we should concentrate on the fact that we have far more in common with our European partners than divides us. That will be the same after we've left the European Union as it is now. And in fact, I look across the chamber at the honourable gentleman for Ipswich, and we stood together in one of the glorious Suffolk churches of East Anglia last night and sang Beethoven's Ninth Symphony and the words of Schiller's great poem, The Ode to Joy, which incidentally was composed more than 100 years before the European Union was invented, and has absolutely nothing to do with political and monetary union under the European Union. We're leaving the European Union, we're not leaving Europe.